Okay, so I'm excited to have our first episode of the iTech Insights podcast, and I have a special guest here with me, Anderson Dinga. And Anderson's been an IT manager. He was a director of change management. Now he's a founder of Live Unity, which is helping people with their mental and physical health and wellness. And so, welcome to the episode.
Uriah, thank you for having me, man. That was an amazing introduction. It's so good to have this session with you. I feel like this is long overdue. Thank you for having me. I feel like it's not that long ago when we're exchanging this, but in person while in Santa Barbara. So it's good to do this virtually. My name is Anderson Dinka, for those of you who are joining in. I've been in IT for about 20, 20 plus years in my life, and now I run a wellness company. A lot of my focus has been wellness, but technology is still a backbone of what I do. So it's good to be here. It's good to have this topic of goal setting. Um, we all set goals at one point in our lives. I've set goals in so many different areas of my life that now I feel like goal setting is a must do, you know. So thank you. I'm excited to have this topic. Let's jump right into it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, we're going to talk about what's the pain point. Like we've seen a lot of people where they don't make progress. Year after year, they're like, I'm in the same spot that I've been in all
Hmm.
these other years, and even in it could be in work, it could be even in personal life. And so we're going to talk about the importance of setting goals that can help people. And I don't know if you noticed it too, where maybe people are wondering, they're like, I don't know, like I'm just doing my day in day out, but I'm not making any leaps forward.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good. I mean, like I think people exist on. There's two ends of the spectrum, and people usually exist somewhere in the middle. When it comes to goal setting, there's I think of the group of people who I consider the goal diggers, people who are just they go from one goal to the next goal. They're just setting goals and they're just ridiculous. Everything is a goal for them. Set a goal around it, break it down, accomplish it. They're just ridiculous. Everything is a goal. It has to be done. And then there's the other end of the spectrum. By the way, if you fall at either one of these spectrums, it's not good. Uh, in case you're wondering, there's the far end of the spectrum where you hear a lot of people just leave it to Jesus or leave it to God or just pray and it's gonna miraculously happen. Either end, if you pray, God did give you a brain and two hands to go take some action, so go take some action. Either way, goal setting is an amazing tool. It is a tool to help you accomplish your goals. And I've used it in my personal fitness, where you talk about running half marathons, being able to take the goal of, for example, running 13 miles and break it that down to like, oh, the first thing I need to do is go buy a pair of sneakers, like it's really amazing. And you know what? It's something that we have to do in so many different areas, financial setting, relationships. In the beginning of this year, I talked about SMART goals. There's so many different tools out there when you have goal setting. So I'm sure you've come across some yourself, Uriah. What have you seen when it comes to goal setting, and what what are some of your thoughts around it? Because you've been doing this now for a while as well. What does goal setting mean for you?
Yeah, I think goal setting gives us focus, because we can get so caught up in just the day to day of, just especially in IT, like there's tickets that come in, there's emails, people reach out to, I need your help and stuff. But sometimes you need that focus to be like, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish in this next quarter or this year. And so you need
Mhm.
those goals to remind yourself of where you're headed. Because if you don't, then you're kind of like a boat that just kind of wanders out. It's just going along with the waves and the tide. But if you
Exactly.
you set your sails, you set your oars, now you start rowing in a direction, you'll eventually get there. So that's why I think goal tracking is so important, especially
Yeah.
for the teams.
Yeah. I love that elimination of stagnation, right? Because sometimes we wonder, why am I still in the same place? And half the time we don't know until we actually stop to reflect, to reflect and go, well, what did I just accomplish? And realize actually, no, we didn't accomplish much. We're in the same place. So I that's why I think, yeah, you're right. I love your sailor approach because sailors have to be able to look far and set the vision of the future. And I think our leadership is really, really important. Or good leadership is really, really important nowadays when you talk about setting that vision of the future, because that essentially gets it mobilizes the team to start taking some action that leads towards that objective. So, oops, I just said objective. I know we're going to talk about goals.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we were going to talk about. One specific tracking framework, and
Yeah,
and you and I, we were working at the same company at the time when we actually introduced OKRs, objectives and key
yeah,
results, and it was kind of interesting. I was just listening because I knew we were going to talk about this. I was listening to the book "Measure What Matters" by John Doer, and so he it's an interesting story. He uh, back in the '70s was working for Intel as an intern, and there was someone by the name of Andy Grove, who was one of the executives in Intel, and he created this framework, a very simple framework, but very powerful because it helped everybody get alignment with the goal and knew
mm,
what they needed to do, and it was simple to follow. And so I'll post the book in the comments about Measure What Matters by John Doer. But it's a good story because then later on, John used his experience from using OKRs in Intel with Google. And so when Google was a 30-person company, he
hmm
went there and was like, hey, I have something that can help you. I know you have big ideas, but ideas without execution are nothing. You know, he said execution is everything. So he helped Google early on, and that they used this framework OKRs throughout their whole business as it grew. They even in that book, there's examples where they used it to grow YouTube. They wanted to
Oh
reach a
yeah,
billion viewed hours a day, and they said,
yeah,
okay, well that's the goal, but how do we get there? So they're using OKRs to do that. Same thing with Google Chrome, the web browser.
yeah,
They wanted to reach so many downloads or so much usage, and they set these high goals, but they needed to know how to get there. So that's where kind of OKRs came in and helped them achieve
yeah,
these. They called them BHAG goals, these big audacious stretch goals for them.
yeah. Big, hairy, audacious goals. I
Oh
love
yeah,
those examples that you listed. Google, Intel, Chrome, YouTube. Bono's foundation is one of the foundations that was actually the pioneers of the OKR method. So many different organizations have used objectives and key results, and I love that book, and I highly recommend it. That's such a must read when you talk about goal setting. I think anyone who's in their IT career, to be honest with you, if you have 10 books that you got to read, that's got to be in it. Andy Grove, John Doer, the story about OKRs and Google is it's incredible when you talk about innovation around productivity, human capital productivity. So yeah, I'd love to go into the topic on OKRs. I love where you already started, Uriah, talking about alignment. It is one of the great benefits of OKRs when you talk about alignment. So in IT, what does alignment mean? If I'm new and I'm just starting in my career, what does alignment mean? So if I can go back to when I started, I was a help desk. My job was to answer tickets, answer the phone, answer emails. Um, and so how does my job contribute to the bottom line, top line, whatever the vision of the company is? If it's a tech company that's making a product, or if it's an education company that's educating the leaders of the future, that's the question that a lot of first year, second year IT people are asking, even third, fourth, 10th year IT people, they're asking, how does my job contribute to this company's vision of the future?
Yeah,
OKRs is that thing. And
yeah,
it was
and
so
that
powerful
alignment.
when we did it years ago. Yeah, that is a question around alignment. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me about your story that when you first, you were telling me earlier about how when you first heard about OKRs and at our company when we first started it.
Yeah, it was just one of those things, right? Where we were years ago, where we were working together. Um, we had started going down the train of mergers and acquisitions. And I think at this point we had done two big ones. It was LastPass and GetGo, and now I think we're at the point of integrating a NanoRep, which was an Israel company. And at that point, we realized, holy moly, different teams are coming in with different ways of measuring productivity, different ways of understanding what is important to the company. How cool would it be if we all just had one way that says, I understand what my job is and I know how it connects to the big picture and I know what that big picture actually really is. And so it was a organization wide initiative, but I think for us it started with IT because IT wanted a way, one, to find that alignment, but two, and even bigger because we're on the M&A train, was to break down those silos. We had acquired different IT teams over time, and there was so much in the form of silo that collaboration was hard. Not just silos in the form of like geographical silos, like I'm in Israel, you're in Boston, you're in Santa Barbara, but I'm in security, you're in tech ops, I'm in application engineering, and we just don't have the same language to communicate with each other. So yeah, OKRs came in like a like a guide, like a winner, because it was a must need at that point, to be honest with you, that all teams could speak the same language. And by the way, this is not about your traditional goal tracking from HR. We already had that. The entire company had goal tracking where you would set your goals once a year, and then at the end of the year you go back and review them. But how many people actually remember what goal they set at the beginning of the year? I could barely remember what I
Right.
had for breakfast last week. This is one of those things where it was iterative. You could go set a goal and then be checking in on it once a week with your manager, or once a month with your leaders, or once a quarter, so that way you're keeping up with it. And there was tracking. Remember, there was tracking built
Yeah.
into it as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was tracking. So yeah, that's my that's my story on OKRs. What is your story on OKRs? How did you see it from your perspective?
Yeah, I remember what I liked out about it was that it brought transparency to what other teams were working on, so that they can be like, okay, these are my goals that I'm trying to reach to, and you're like, oh
Yeah,
wow, like I didn't know you're working on that. Like, oh, I can help you with that, or or that's your priority.
yeah,
So when you have your OKRs, they even said post it. I remember even in our office, I would print it out and put it on my desk area. So I can remind
yeah,
myself, but then also other people can see like, oh, what's Uriah working on? And they'd be like, okay, these are his
exactly.
goals. And if they, sometimes that would help too. If they're like, oh, I have some big project for you to, get involved in. It's like, well, is it part of my OKRs that I already planned for to get done for this quarter? And it's good that it's
Exactly.
quarterly too, because then you can pivot. Like, hey, you can track it, and then you can pivot. Like, hey, this goal maybe it lasts for a whole year, but you check in quarter, like, hey, I think I need to change it, adjust it, and so that gives you time than just setting it once and like kind of forgetting about it.
Huge, huge. Dude, huge. I love that quarterly part that you just mentioned because again, it was so much easier to think about something for a quarter than to think about it for a whole year. And within a quarter, if you found out the goal was off the rails for whatever reason, you could pivot, you could adjust, you could shift gears, or you could drop it completely and then pick a different goal, right? Like that was the whole point of it. Like fail fast and learn through that process and then iterate, right? So yeah, that's a it's so funny how when we set some of these big hairy goals, we set the goal to be 5 years out, and then we are so slow at accomplishing it, and we wonder why. I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago. Let's talk about how Steve Jobs, when he was running Apple, he would set these ridiculous goals for Apple, like go do it in 30 days to see what will happen. And he know that it would pretty much take people 90 days to do it, but people would actually get it done in 30 days.
Mm.
So it's really funny when you give people a challenge, people will live up to the expectation. And I love the idea of a big, hairy, audacious goal because a lot of those things were things which we thought it's impossible to do. You know, it's impossible to accomplish cost savings or time savings like what we did through the OKR process. So yeah, you're right. I love that. Do you have any examples that we can share to people that we, as we're talking about this, they can start to actually visualize like what an OKR can do for them?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I wrote up one, and I'll share it here. See if I can add it here. So yeah, so if you're wondering how to create an OKR goal, and if you're watching this or if you're listening in, we'll explain it to it. So we have an example here, and so the OKRs is objectives and key results. So the objective is what you want to do, and then the key results is the how you're going to do it. So in theory, if you completed all the key results as you defined, you would achieve your objective. So here we have the example
Yeah,
of I want to improve my overall health. I want to get healthier. So how can I do this to make, have a better mental and physical health? Well, these are very simple, but the first one is eat 3 healthy meals a day. Sometimes people skip meals. They skip breakfast or they skip dinner and stuff. So, having good nutrition throughout the day. So uh, you'll notice that it's very specific and measurable of like, okay, you can you can tell, did I eat 3 meals a day? Yes or no?
yeah.
And the next one is get 8 hours of sleep each night.
I struggle with
So
that one.
yeah, yeah, I have been lately too.
Yeah,
But you can tell whether or not you slept 8 hours or not, and you can tell when you don't sleep 8 hours, when you're sleeping less, you know, 5, 6 hours, you can feel it. You're like, oh man, I'm not feeling too well. But if you
yeah.
get the 8 hours and you're feeling good, at least around that time, so you can tell yourself like, okay, that's my goal. Get 8 hours of sleep. Then the last one is exercise 3 times per week. So if you're exercising 3 times a week, you're building muscle, you're building stamina, you're building those endorphins that go with it. So it's a collection. So these key results were a collection of eating meals, sleep, and exercise. If you did all those for 3 months, you would start noticing a difference, or even over a course of a year, over a course of multiple years, you would notice your health getting better. So that's a simple example of just what you're trying to accomplish, and then specific measurable ways on how you can achieve that goal.
That's brilliant. I love how you broke them down, like really, really simple. I could see myself in actually in all three of these key results. The key results, the objective is to improve my overall health,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And then the key results are to get 8 hours of sleep daily. Yeah, I get like five right now. Well, maybe, but yeah, but I love how you broke it down, and I think this is great when you think about it from a fitness perspective because I think a lot of people they get goals when you think about them from a fitness perspective. That's one area where you can see incremental progress as you're making effort. So how do you then take this and flip it into the IT perspective from a for goal setting?
That's interesting you ask because I do have another example, and
Oh,
let me
nice.
switch it over.
That's awesome.
I created this other example of if you wanted to improve, let's say, endpoint security, your computer security on all the computers um, in your environment. You would think like, okay, what can I do? The goal is just to improve the security of your devices, but what can you do? How can you improve it? So, I put a few ideas down here. One is
Hmm.
that to patch. Patch management is huge. So you'd be patching your operating system, your third-party applications, and you want to get on the latest patch within every 30 days or so. You don't want to get too far behind, and then that's when there's um, zero-day attacks or openings or vulnerabilities that can come from these applications. So just keeping applications up to date and your operating system can help improve the security. But that's
Right.
not all. There's other ways you can improve the security. Um, I put down here increasing the login password to 16 characters. The longer the password it is to log into a computer, the harder it is to crack.
Right.
And so, using passphrases, um, collection of words, and some numbers will help uh,
Yeah.
elongate that password. So that's one way to increase the security. The other one is just having antivirus software deployed to your computer. So if you notice, there's
Mm.
there's there's specific ways we can do it, but also measurable too. So you can be like, okay, am I patching every 30 days all the computers and
Right.
operating systems? Did I increase the password login? Maybe it was at 8, and now you're going to increase it to 16. Or and then you can also track, have I deployed the software to all the antivirus software to all the computers 100%. Then you can track it like,
Yeah.
no, I'm actually at 75%. I need to go get those
Mm.
other 25% computers that don't have it. And if you achieve that 100% and you increase your password login and you're patching every 30 days, you would have thus improved the security of your endpoints.
Bingo. Wow. That's amazing. And you know what? To be honest with you, as I look at all three of these, I could see two of them that might be like I don't want to say a slam dunk because either way, you may be able to get to like 90 something percent for all three of these. But for one of them, the antivirus deployment, that's one which I know we struggle with because sometimes you have devices that are offline or that have not been turned on for a little bit and you have to chase after them. So it would always come up to like 95% or 90% or something like that. And so 100% would be your stretch goal, right? That would be a BHAG in that sense. A big, hairy, audacious goal would be to get to 100%, um, which is
Yeah,
doable, by the way,
that's
which
that's
is
true.
doable.
And it's kind of like shoot for the stars and maybe you'll reach the moon.
Yeah.
So if you set your bar too low, like, oh, I want to have 50% of computers, enrolled in antivirus, and that's like, yeah, you get 50%, but you're not quite there yet. You want to, like, I want to
Yeah.
get to 100, and then maybe you might hit 98%, and then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, it's better than 50% than I would have said. Not quite 100, but I got as
Right.
close as I could to that stretch goal.
Yeah. Oh, I love these two examples actually. I love that you prepared these two because I could actually see myself in both of these examples. Years ago when we worked together, I managed an endpoint security team, and one of the projects that we worked on was to increase people's passwords, the password length to 16 characters. So I had to change the password policy from the IT side, but then also had to drive the change management, education of end users, employees. That was a lot of fun, man. Like I really enjoyed working on that project. And yeah, we did complete a lot of projects on time. We did complete a lot of projects under budget just by using the OKR method. And I love what you said about transparency because at the end of the day, I was able to see my goals in your goals. You were able to see your goals in my goals. That overlap was what really drove a lot of the performance that we wanted to see with IT. So
Yeah,
and mind you, a lot of IT departments they don't have a whole lot of people, so you want to make sure that your team's operating optimally. So tool like this is perfect for a team that's like we're strapped for people. Even though I know for us we were strapped for people, but it was like one more thing on IT's desk to go do, right? But the moment that we learned it and started doing it, it was just like we took off. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's like a muscle. You kind of have to exercise a bit, and then it gets easier and easier. But it's a simple framework of just like, what are you trying to accomplish and how are you going to do it? And then even if, let's say for this one, you take this on for the next quarter as well, and you said, well, I already increased the password to 16 characters. You replace it with another one. You're like, okay, I want to continue to improve. What else could I do? So you did that one. That one's done. Now add another one there. So you can. They're flexible where you can keep on changing them as you
yeah,
as you go, and then you'll get better over time. You'll
yeah.
improve the security of the endpoints.
Uriah, I have a question for you, and your viewers might be curious about this, but we've been talking about goal setting, and there is a part of goal setting which is what's the whole point of setting the goal in the first place? It's really accomplishing that goal and celebrating it. How how does celebrating goals play out in the OKR process?
Well, now you have a track record of actually what you did over the course of the year. And
Right.
as a manager, I like to see that too, so I can say like, okay, what have you been able to accomplish over the year? I know one thing
Interesting.
they say that don't keep OKRs tracked to bonuses and stuff, which is good because then you don't
Yeah.
want to stretch yourself to a goal too far. Like, oh, if that's tied to my bonus, so they say don't tie it to your bonus, but you can look at it as your overall performance as well. Like if you set a
Yeah.
goal and you completed it, you set a goal and you completed it, then at like you said, at the end of the year, you can go back like, wow, look at all that I accomplished, and you can celebrate those with your team in your performance reviews. You can even now you have a historical record of what you've done, and if you happen to change jobs later on, you can be like, look, these are some of the things I've accomplished in my previous job, because
Yeah.
that's golden too. Because when you're interviewing, sometimes just showcasing some of the things you've done. Like, hey, I've improved the endpoint security for my last job, and I can do it for you too. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, and then you tracked the goals, and that's how you did it. Like that would be impressed me if I was interviewing someone looking to fill a position like that.
You're so right on the money. I found a document from 2019. You know, it's so funny when we were preparing for this session, I had to go back into my hard drive and I searched a little bit and I found this document and it was the IT goals from 2019 and endpoint security was on there, IT communications. It was such a flashback and a really good one too because like you're saying, your resume is just not enough when you think about communicating your the totality of your experience, being able to go back to a piece of document that says I did this with these people and this was the result of it, and that in your preparation stage it's huge. So, and I love what you said about the celebration of success because the whole point of goal setting is to accomplish something, and for us to keep going, for us to keep that momentum, celebrating wins is really important. So I think for us, we had built in the wins process every Friday, for example. So it's always something to celebrate, which is amazing, you know, because there is always something to celebrate when you're working in corp IT. You know, you're always fighting some kind of fire, deflecting a virus or a hacker, setting up a new hire last minute because because that's what you do. So
Hmm.
uh, yeah, yeah. Thank you, man. This is absolutely amazing. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I'm looking forward to learning more about OKRs, and I think for the viewers, if you're thinking about um, getting into OKRs, implementing and driving an adoption for it, certainly reach out. I make myself available. I'll make myself available for any questions regarding OKRs. I still use it today in my personal life and very much in my professional life. I still use it to set those objectives, the, what I call it is set the vision of the future and then set the steps in order to go accomplish them. And as you're accomplishing them, celebrate every step along the way. So thank you,
Yeah,
Uriah.
yeah, very true. Yeah, I appreciate that discussion on goals and how it's helped us, over the years, and how it can help, our audience if they're looking for ways to track their goals. So we hope that's a value. As we land the plane, I have one question that I like to ask the guests. What advice would you give your younger self? Like if you had an
Mm.
opportunity to go back in time and talk to younger Anderson, what would you tell yourself?
uh, oh, I got one. Yeah. Younger version of me was a bit of a perfectionist, so so I would be very afraid of taking risks. So if I was able to go back and tell myself, I would say take the risk. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of failure. I think so much of the time we are conditioned to not fail and we don't take risks, but we fail to realize. Now I am realizing that my greatest lessons in my life came out of my failures. Not necessarily successes are great, awesome, but those challenges, those pain points, those um, difficult moments, those failures, that's where I grew the most. So yeah, it would be don't be afraid of failure. What about you? What would you go back? Do you get to answer this question as well, or is it just your guests who get to answer?
Yeah, I'll answer it too. You know, I would tell myself, take control of your career, because
Mm,
a lot of times I did my job and I hope people would notice. But when you take control of it, no one's going to fight more harder for your career than yourself. So
yeah,
like make yourself visible, make yourself like we're talking about the goals. Set goals for yourself. Like, okay, where do I want to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and
huge.
then really take charge of it, and not to be afraid. Not that you're trying to be like, hey, look at me, look how great I am, but to make sure that to show people like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing to help you do your job better or help the team do better. Putting yourself out there. That's what I would tell myself. Put yourself out there.
Mm,
Volunteer for more things. I mean, I kind of did it, kind of accidentally, I guess, but I went through different avenues of IT that gave me so much exposure to what I know now, to just keep
yeah,
on learning, trying new things. That really helped me to get to, I think, where I'm at right now. So that's what I would tell my younger self. Put
I
myself
love
out
that.
there.
I love that for you. And if there is someone who I know who has been consistent when you talk about putting themselves out there, that's you, Uriah. Because if I look back at, if I'm going backwards in your trajectory right now from being a manager and a leader right now to being a change manager, BRM, a founder, like all of those things are ways that I've seen you put yourself out there. And for an IT person, it's not easy. It's really
Hmm.
not that easy to put yourself out there. So kudos to you and to those who are listening. It doesn't happen overnight, this stuff happens with a conscious effort to want to do better. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and Uriah, thank you for having me. This has been a really really amazing learning opportunity, a good walk down memory lane, and just an absolutely amazing exchange of energy. So I'm looking forward to the next time when we do one of these.
Okay, yeah, totally. I'd like to have you back. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody who listened in, and I hope you guys have a great day.